Good evening, everyone, and happy Hanukkah. Thank you very much for joining us. We are in the middle of chapter 14. Last week, we spoke about the rabbi is telling us that there is a way for a person to stay away from disobeying God by just behaving like a tzaddik, not being a tzaddik, but behaving like a tzaddik. The behaving like a tzaddik, what happened? We lost him? Oh, they're here. The behaving like a tzaddik is by speech, thought, and action, doing the right thing. The fact that we have a desire, a burning desire to scream at somebody or to misbehave, is maybe something I was born with, and it may not change. The DNA of the person may not change, or it's possible to change, but it's very hard. However, speech, thought, and action is something that we can, and I can get help, and there's all kinds of ways to assist in making the change. The rabbi now is going to move on at the same theme, the idea of living a good life. And maybe I should give you an introduction to what the rabbi asked in chapter 1, another question that he's going to address now. When a soul, according to the Talmud, before a soul is born, he's been administered an oath, be a tzaddik, and do not be a rasha. Be a righteous and do not be wicked. It seems superfluous, because if I'm told I have to be a tzaddik, it means I cannot be a rasha. If the oath is do not be a rasha, it's obviously if you're not a rasha, you got to be a tzaddik. That's the answer the rabbi is going to address. And the answer the rabbi is going to address is the following. There are two philosophers that will disagree about our striving to excellence. There is one school of thought that says we have to shoot for the moon and perhaps get to the stars, as they say, or get to the sky. In other words, try and aim and set yourself a goal that is way, way out of reach. But the aim is very, very far that you'll never reach, but it will help you reach a certain place where otherwise you wouldn't be. Another school of thought believes that try to have a real targets. Do not try to say, I'm going to be perfect. I'll never raise my voice. I'll never sleep. I'll never oversleep. I'll never use those words. Because what happens is, as soon as you break that promise, you're going to let loose and forget about the commitment. In fact, instead, make a different commitment. Make a perfect commitment that you say you can keep. Let's say you're addicted to sugar or to fat. And instead of cutting down on chocolate, you say, I'll eat only once a day in the morning. And in a month, if I keep it, I'll skip 1 day a week. And so in other words, you set yourself targets that are reachable and doable. If someone who's going to go and say, I'll never have chocolate anymore, we all know that it's very difficult to keep. The first idea is try to make a strong commitment. And if you don't, you are unable to keep it, but at least you tried, and that gets you, the journey gets you to a very far place that otherwise you wouldn't be. The rabbi says that God, when he created us, before he sent us down the tube to the body, the soul, he had given us both methods. He said to us, you must be a tzaddik. That's the goal. Is it reachable? The answer is most likely impossible. However, remember that you have also promised not to be wicked. And that's something everybody can reach. The problem is not to be a wicked alone. It's not going to suffice. A, it's not going to last, because if you try to stay away from sin, you fail. And B, you are able to reach even farther, even if it's to a certain moment or some short period of times. It's much more important than just not to be a wicked. And that's why the Gemara teaches us that when a man is coming to the universe, he's been administered two oaths. One is be a righteous, which is very far-reaching and most likely impossible to reach. However, aiming that far enables us to go and stay away from evil. And at the same time, they administer another oath, do not be wicked, meaning even if you feel down that you'll never reach that point and you feel that you're a failure, don't feel that way, because as long as you stay away from sin, as long as you behave properly, try as best as you can, you have gone through a very good day. That's the first point, the rabbi. Then the rabbi is going to help us fight. This is going to be a short one, a very quick, easy way to stay away from sin. And I'm going to share it now because my goal is to finish the whole chapter. The rabbi says that in order for us to stay away from sin, the biggest problem we face is worldly pleasures. Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berdichov said, God, it's not fair. You put all of the reward for serving God in the books, but the actual pleasures that you don't like, you put it in front of their eyes. It's not fair. How is it possible to expect people to not get involved in worldly pleasures that are abhorrent to God? Why don't you, it's just to God, why don't you reverse the order? Write in the books the great pleasure that what happens if you don't speak properly and you don't do the right thing, and put in front of our eyes the reward in heaven. I'm sure nobody will sing. So the biggest challenge a person has is worldly pleasure. Now, I use worldly pleasure, but it should be taken in a broader sense. It's about emotions, it's about conduct, it's all of the guidance that God is giving us, in which the evil inclination is trying to put a stop to. So each one faces different challenges. Says the rabbi, there are two ways to stay away from it. Number one, and it is by the way, this is an easy, quick fix, so to say, so it doesn't last long. You have to constantly work on it. And this is one path. Soon the rabbi is going to go into a very long path that is much, much more foundational in our life. But the rabbi is saying that if you get busy with positive activities, it takes you away from negative behavior. If you are, and by the way, today, the doctors or nutritionists, when people are saying to them, I can't, we say to them, make sure you're full. You have no need for food, so you stay away from unhealthy food. Make sure that you enjoy Shabbat. Make sure you enjoy the relationship with your children, with your spouse, with your parents. Make it a good experience. So you won't be challenged about raising your voice and not coming home and promising a commitment. In other words, this is the Rebbe's point, the first method. The first one is the Rebbe saying, you are drawn into worldly pleasures. You are drawn into staying in bed longer, going to bed late, whatever it might be. Everybody has, this is a more mature crowd. I don't think they have an issue with going to bed or waking up. But in my house, the last weekend, we had 4 young boys, and they went to bed at 4 a.m. and they got up at 2 p.m. every day. And they think that I am a Nazi for asking them to be up at 9 a.m. Last night, they were very impressed, and they love it. Says, what can we do for you? I says, come to Minyan in the morning. I felt I can change them.
Oh, no.
Guess what? She asked me what time. So I said 8 o'clock. I can see the shock in their eyes. But then they said, you know, for you, for the weekend you gave us and the experience they had, they're going to do it. Guess what? No show. Except what? One showed up at 8:30. One showed up and I gave him an aliyah.
At least
Right. And they flew home today. So which means that even flying home, and they wanted to spend the day at the beach, because in New York they don't have such a beach, they couldn't get up at 8 o'clock. So everybody has different, I'm dealing with this type of crowd. So we have different challenges. Everybody has their challenge. Says the Rebbe, if you take your time and energy and dedicate it to positive activities, it will take away the time that you are having to engage in negativity. And that's why socialization is so healthy, because if we are if we stay home all day, we start thinking and start wandering, and the mind and the body moves to different places that later on we might regret. And that's what the cause for addiction, for all kinds of misbehaving. As soon as we are actively involved in, we know, by the way, there is a during COVID, there was a very high number of divorce. Anybody knows that the percentage, huh?
Because people couldn't stand to live with
Because-
their spouse.
Unfortunately, alcohol consumption went very high, and children who were born during COVID time are facing a lot of challenges. We have a preschool, so among preschool directors, there is a term, a COVID baby, meaning that they are delayed in their development, or they are antisocial because they couldn't go out. So back to our discussion here. If we get involved and make the life as a Jewish person or mitzvah a very fun and inviting, it takes, not only it gets people involved, but gets them off misbehaving. So if I may, I do not have to beg my kids not to violate Shabbat, because I want to make sure they enjoy. So I ask them, what food do you want? I have a child who likes dips. Anybody knows what dips are? You know, because you've been to Crown Heights. Oh, you do dips too, probably, no? When they visit.
Of course.
So he loves dips, different salads that you open up the meal with before you start the main course, the first course. Different eggplant salad and matbucha and different, so they can olive spread. They like dips. So now my wife is busy making dips. Why? We want the kids to come to the Shabbat table and look forward to it. So we make the dessert very tasty. We want to make sure it's a pleasurable activity. And this is what the rabbi is saying. The rabbi says, you cannot fight darkness with darkness. You fight darkness with light. That's the first method. It's a very quick one, but make sure whenever you face a challenge, as I said, eating habits or bedtime or just matters, find the positive one and make it exciting that you're going to get involved with that activity in a positive way. So this way that automatically will take you away from negative. The second point the rabbi is making is get involved to discover the negativity, how negative it is for you. And I think I'll explain. Make sure to get involved to discover how bad negative behavior is for you. You understand that?
Yeah.
Smoking today, how are they able, aside from raising taxes, etc., is to show kids, patients who are affected by smoking. Car accidents for drunk driving, you put those cars that were involved in car accidents on display. I think I showed it to you. I used to love playing with fire, and my parents couldn't stop me, so they took me to a psychologist. And the psychologist said to me, to my parents, that on the way home, they should stop in a hospital in a burnt unit. So they should show me what happened if someone get burned. So I should be able to experience that. So my father says, okay, we'll do it. So I said, you know what? This is enough for me. It's enough just thinking and imagining what I'm going to see there. I promise not to touch matches anymore. And it actually was very effective. In other words, that's the second way. If I am to show you how they create hot dogs, I don't think you would have any more. Why are you laughing? Huh? Huh? Kishke. There is a story of the, I think it's worth sharing. The Caesar, the Caesar of Rome, once asked, I believe it was Rabbi Akiva, they were scholars who studied Torah. They really studied Torah. Last week, I talked about, 2 weeks ago on my speech on Shabbat, I talked about the minister that came to the Alter Rebbe, Ayek, how are you? So the Caesar of Rome asked Rabbi Akiva, why when God created Eve, he put Adam to sleep? It says that God put him to sleep. He actually, what do you do when somebody gets operated? You get numbed, Anesthetized, anesthesia. God put a man to anesthesia before he removed Eve, the side from Adam. What's wrong? He could have done that while he was alive. There was no pain.
He didn't need advice.
He didn't need advice. He didn't ask for advice.
If he was seeing what was going on.
So Rabbi Akiva said to him, the answer will come when I serve you dinner. Come to my house. And he said, sure, he's coming to, I'm not sure it's Rabbi Akiva, maybe Rabbi Tarfon, I don't remember. And he ordered the Caesar to come into the kitchen. And he told his daughter or his wife to take a raw meat and start butchering it in front of the Caesar to prepare for the meal for him. And as he saw that it was almost alive, it was just slaughtered. And as she was taking it apart and butchering it, and then she was putting it on the grill, the Caesar says, enough. I can't eat. I don't want to eat. He says, and why? He says, because, just imagining everything I saw while I'm going to eat this piece, I've lost the appetite. And Rabbi said to him, that's exactly what happens to Adam. God did not want to see him to see the process. So he should learn to respect Eve and not always think about the process by which they were separated. So in other words, when you take something and you go back and you start thinking something that's negative, and you start contemplating on the consequence, or you start thinking about what it is for real, it enables us to stay away, take a step back. By doing so, we are able to stay away. So these are the two methods the rabbi is going to speak about. Staying not to be wicked. In other words, the oath is to be tzaddik, to try, but the bottom line is, as the rabbi is going to explain, no matter what, the challenge is always there. We are always going to face a challenge from the evil inclination. So the first method is to replace that activity with a positive activity and make it fun and exciting, not being forced and not have no choice because everybody does it, because they expect me. No, make sure that it's a very good activity. And the second one, if it's a negative activity, find the reason why it's negative and contemplate on it and make it visual. If you make it visual, it enables you to stay away. Even if you fail once, twice, it will keep you away. The rabbi, there is a famous rabbi who told a young boy from France once that the evil inclination is like playing soccer. You fight for the ball, but when finally the ball comes to you, what do? You kick it away, right? Says the rabbi to him, that's the evil inclination. You're going to fight. Finally, you think you conquer them, and the answer is, you have him under your arm? No, you got to kick him because he's going to come back with a new way of challenging you. So the evil inclination is not sitting idle. He's always thinking of ways to get us into trouble. And we need to stay alert and either replace those negative activities with positive activities, and B, find the reason why they are negative and realize and contemplate and visualize it so that we are able to continue. And towards the end, the rabbi is going to talk about the idea that righteous, wicked, and Beinoni are not necessarily three different persons, but it's within one person, it's possible. So there are some mitzvot that I enjoy, and therefore I'm a tzaddik. I have no challenge. I have no desire. I think I spoke about it last week. There are some mitzvot that the challenge is so great, and that's like a wicked. And there are some mitzvot that I'm in the middle. I'm able to control as long as I stay on top of the situation. Let's go and read a little bit. Now, we are on the bottom of page 215. Now we may understand the repetitious wording in the oath administered to every Jew before birth. Be a tzaddik and do not be a rasha, as quoted from the Talmud in the opening words of the Tanya. At first glance, says the Rabbi, it seems puzzling. Once he is charged with be a tzaddik, be a righteous, implying clearly that he not be a rasha, why the need to adjure him to again not to be a rasha, not to be wicked? The answer is that inasmuch as not everyone is privileged to become a tzaddik, nor has a person the full advantage of choice in this matter of experiencing true delight in God and of actually and truly abhorring evil, each person is consequently adjured a second time, you shall, at any rate, not be a rasha. In other words, be a tzaddik is not something we can reach. Not everybody is going to be lucky enough to hate evil. Even if a person is not privileged to become a tzaddik, he should at the very least not be a rasha, being instead a beinoni. With regards to this, not being a rasha, the right of choice and freedom is extended to every man to control the spirit of lust in his heart and to conquer his nature, so that he shall not be wicked for even one moment throughout his life. This applies both in the realm of turning away from evil, refraining from transgression, and in that of doing good, performing all the positive mitzvot in which he is obligated, and especially the mitzvah of Torah study, which is specifically termed good. As our sages say, there is no good other than Torah. Meaning, the study of Torah, which balances, that is equal to all the other mitzvot combined. So when we study Torah, it is considered like we fulfill all the God's commandments. It's equal, it's a balance equal to all the commandments. Says the Rebbe, you strive to become a tzaddik, but you may not be able to reach that point. But at least don't be a wicked, don't be a beinoni. By reason of the freedom of choice granted him, one is expected to surmount even the difficulty of faithfully observing this most difficult mitzvah of constant Torah study. Says the Rebbe, there is a mitzvah to constantly study Torah. If someone puts an effort, they are able to fulfill this mitzvah. For this reason, the oath is administered a second time. Even if one does not have the opportunity to become a tzaddik, it is still possible for him and therefore expected of him not to be a rasha, not to be wicked. The Alter Rebbe now goes on to state that everyone should strive to emulate the tzaddik's service of God, although he may never actually reach the rank of a tzaddik. Specifically, one should train oneself to loathe worldly pleasures, and conversely, he should try to awaken in himself a delight in the love of God, which is accomplished through reflecting deeply on his greatness. Thereby, one fulfills the charge, be a tzaddik, and to the best of his ability. So how do you fulfill the oath of becoming a tzaddik? Not by actually becoming a tzaddik, by actually trying to become a tzaddik. And do not become a wicked by not acting like a wicked, but acting like a beinoni, which is doing the right behavior. Nevertheless, though it has been said that not every person can loathe evil and attain the love of the light, characteristic of a tzaddik, and we are dealing here with a beinoni, yet one must also set aside specific periods to seek for himself means of abhorring evil, that is, of loathing worldly pleasures. That's the second method the Rabbi is talking about. For example, following the advice of our sages and overcoming a lust for women, let one reflect on the words, women is a vessel full of filth, and the like. So too, men too, it's not just women. So too, why are you laughing? I don't have much to say about it because no matter what I say, it may not. But the sages tell us that if a man has the great lust, and by the way, and I'm not joking, women who have great lust for men is the same. They should contemplate, what is this body made out of? vessels, blood, and veins and bones. And that will hold them back from chasing after. So too, one may learn to despise gluttony by reflecting that all the dainties and delicacies similarly become vessels full of waste. Just think about the outcome of all the pleasure, the cakes and the steaks that you eat. It will come something that you run away from, and it smells not so good. So that to hopefully, in other words, contemplate. The first way is trying to make our connection to God, becoming a tzaddik, to enjoy God, to enjoy the mitzvot. The second method the Rabbi is giving us is try to contemplate what's the outcome from all this behaving. At the end of the day, if it's not right, it's not going to be good for us.
Rabbi, you're messing up all the fun things.
And I've heard this is, we are going fast, even though I'm going slow because I want to make sure every part is being understood, but we are going very, very fast. I just want to show you that in yeshiva, the first 3 chapters, we study a whole year and we study every night. And then the second year, we study again from the beginning. Now we're reading it with more commentary, the Tanya. And hopefully by the second year in yeshiva, I'm already 15, we study the first 12 chapters. So in yeshiva, I never finished studying the whole Tanya. The goal was to reach it's chapter 26, 27. We're talking about every single day for either 45 minutes or an hour and 15 studying it. And the Hebrew, which is the key here, is something that we understand very well. So just translation is more than half of the effort that is placed here. So what we do is just touching the surface. So there is a lot of examples that jump through my mind. And one of them is that I heard it from a very famous lecturer, a Chabad lecturer once. I happened to walk in, I was very young. People asked him a bunch of questions, and he gave a talk. And when he was done, a very famous rabbi, he came to LA. I was a very young man, and somebody told me, let's go. And it was a 45-minute drive from Los Angeles. And we drove there without asking permission from the dean of the yeshiva, but I'll never regret it because there was a few things that I learned from him. He gave us a short lecture for like 35 minutes. Then he says, you have any questions? And people start asking questions about the mechitza, separation of men and women. Why do you need to cover your hair? There was all kinds of questions. They expected him to give an answer to every question. But he says, no, hold off with the answers. Just ask the question. They really ask a vast, probably 15 different questions. When they're all done, he started speaking. And by the time he was done, he spoke for 5 minutes. All the 15 questions, all the questions were answered. It was amazing. So one of the things he said then is that to prove this point is that whenever people wants to get you to buy something, I'm responding to you. You woke up this memory with me. Whenever you want people to buy something, they put a good-looking girl next to it. A car, a Audi. They want you to buy Audi. There is a nice, I'm not going to say the word that's improper, but a nice, good-looking girl to make sure that she's standing next to the car. Now, am I looking for a wife? I'm looking for a car. Why are they selling me the girls there? You want to buy an air conditioner, a generator. There is always, if they are smart and they know what they're doing, they would put a girl standing next to.
Or a great looking.
Or a great looking guy, of course. And today we have to be politically correct.
Really, why do they do that?
And
I mean,
why?
If you buy a car, who cares?
Well, who cares?
But people do.
And they pay for that girl more than they pay for the car that they're putting in the ad.
Creating an association.
But have you ever asked the girl some technical questions about the car?
Yeah, they know nothing.
Zero.
I met a girl, a Russian girl, that was a model for Mercedes. There was a Mercedes dealership here in town, Glauser Mercedes. Gary Glauser is very successful. He has now 2 or 3. He's retired, but and I used to come there because some of the top salesmen were Israelis. There was one Israeli top salesman, and he had friends, Russian friends, that he brought him as salesmen. One of the salesmen's girlfriend was the model for Mercedes. So he introduced me to her. And he says to me that every car she models in, she stands next to and she gets the car. That's the payment. She gets the car. So I said, if I'm going to ask her, what's the difference between this one and the coveted one? There are some coveted Mercedes that they pay 3 or 4 times to get. And Gary were able to get it. And you'd sell it somewhere, even in Europe. You'd sell it back to Europe and you'd sell it for 3 or 4 times. He says to me, she has no idea. I'm not sure she knows that she is able to drive the car. But she owns one. She has one. Every model she models, this. Back to our discussion. Why do they put the girls? And the answer is they want you to get excited. Once you get excited, you are not rationalizing anymore. Now, some people will say, oh, you want to, it's psychological. I'm just sharing with you the fact that if they sell you a refrigerator, there is a girl standing next to the refrigerator. If they want to sell you a new model home that they are building, they would put a girl standing next to it. And they put the girl in the center. And the reason is once you look at the girl, you forget about everything else. It says, okay, what's the deal? What's the, how many payments, etc. Right, Herman?
But can you imagine if they would put a not attractive lady next to a car? They would never sell it.
They'll sell more cars faster. Because people won't pay attention.
Don't break the spell.
The bottom line is what the rabbi is telling us. If you're looking at the outcome of the actions, it will prevent us from misbehaving. The first method is try to connect with God in an exciting way that makes you happy and fun. Make sure every time you interact with a mitzvah, it's done like a tzaddik, that you enjoy every moment of it. And it doesn't have to be with prayer. It doesn't have to be with old tradition, quite the opposite. It should be with the current food style and the new menu continuously, and finding new friends and socializing. In other words, you make it exciting. The second one, so you have no time to sin. The second one is contemplate on negativity and realize that anytime you're involved in negative behavior, there are consequences and you will pay the price later. If you think about that, it will hold you back. That's what the rabbi is saying. And that's the idea of Tehi tzaddik, be a righteous, strive to serve God like a tzaddik, even though if you're not going to be a tzaddik, but at least you try, that's part of the oath. The second part of the oath is the negative part. Do not be wicked, because you contemplate that being wicked will not pay off at the end of the day. Next week, by the way, we're going to discuss the benefit of the challenge that we go through before we do any good. If there is no challenge, no pain, no gain, as they say. This is the essence in the Hasidic teaching. So we will talk about the challenges that actually bring the best out of us and are the purpose. And if anybody is coming to JLI this week, we're going to talk about that. The idea of challenges and the fact that we fail. We make a resolution and we won't be, I don't know about you, but I know I am part of 85% of the population. Comes New Year, everybody makes a resolution. They say it doesn't last more, for majority, I don't think it lasts more than a week. I'll go to a gym, I'll be kinder, I will do this. It doesn't last much. And this is ingrained, it's part of our DNA. Let's continue.
I have all to fix that. With the next door good-looking girl.
With what?
Your resolution.
Your resolution.
Or the gym.
Million in the morning.
Hey, what are you talking about?
Now you are talking.
The problem is you can't get a woman to come in at 6:30 in the morning.
No, I just want to share that the first at least 20 years of Chabad, we had more women than men on Friday night and Shabbat. And even now, on Shabbat, sometimes we get more women. And it was my pride. Because if there are women here, there's guaranteed to have men here. If there are only men, you're not sure if they're going to be here next week. And I used to, whenever I was asked to speak in Israel and even in New York about shul, synagogue, I would say to them, don't work as hard on men as much as you work hard on getting women. Because if you get the women, you got the men by already joining.
Absolutely right.
If you don't get them, if you work on the men are swinging by. The next day there's a movie or a show or a musician who came to town and there is no competition. But
Nancy's a woman because she can't.
So I should come to Minyan on.
yes,
Yes, yeah.
I spoke about Friday night and Shabbat.
I have another theory.
Let's-
If you have more women, you'll get more women.
Right, it's true.
It's not just the men,
So-
you'll get more women because the women want to. be with others.
So I am sharing that for years, this was our target and it was very successful. We had more women than men. And I don't know, fortunately or unfortunately, one year, I tell people, 1 year, in one summer, we lost four families with children. We lost about 14 children. In 1 year, the Hebrew school shrunk by like 40%. And the same is the shul. Those young women were very Flora Tao. Do you remember Flora Tao?
Sure.
You remember Flora Tao? She used to make sure everybody, all our friends are coming here Friday night. Friday night in the playground, it was full of children. 20 kids were here Friday night. Flora Tao left Sharon Fines and Gabi Klein, and there was a fourth one. Between them, there were 14 or 15 kids that were gone in 1 year. Also, once they stopped pushing, Sunstein was later a little bit. Yes, okay. In this way, one cultivates an abhorrence of worldly pleasures. Conversely, one should train himself to delight and rejoice in God by reflecting to the best of his ability on the greatness of the blessed Ein Sof. He may well know that he will not attain this degree of loathing evil and delighting in godliness with the fullest measure of truth, but will only imagine it. In other words, he will not become a tzaddik, but at least try to walk towards that goal. He will fancy that he truly abhors evil and delight in godliness. Why then should he exert himself merely to produce a fantasy, especially in the service of God where sincerity is essential? Says the Rebbe, nevertheless, he should do his part to uphold the oath administered to him to be a tzaddik, meaning try your best to reach that goal, even if you will never reach that goal. And God will do as he sees fit, whether to grant him and the level of a tzaddik or not. In other words, try your best and you fulfill that oath by striving to become a tzaddik. Are you going to become a tzaddik? It's up to God. It's not a choice. Furthermore, emulating the tzaddik in loathing evil and delighting in God produces another benefit for the Beinoni. The rabbi is going to talk about one more idea. The rabbi is saying is, let's say I hate getting up in the morning because I like to stay in bed longer. I need to realize that if I do it 1 time, 3 times, 4 times a week, then I will not have that challenge anymore the next week. Because once you get used to something, and today science prove it, any behavior that you adopt, even though it's hard and it's painful and there is no pleasure, but if you do it and repeat it like a bunch of times, it will become we call it a second nature. Second nature makes it much easier. It becomes normal. Anybody experienced that in the past?
Yeah.
All right. Going to a gym,
Very good at you.
come into shul. You get somebody to come. So that's what the rabbi is saying. Furthermore, emulating the tzaddik in loathing evil and delighting in God produces another benefit for the Benoni. Habit reigns supreme in all matters. It becomes second nature. Therefore, when one accustoms himself to loathe evil, he will begin to find it truly loathsome to some extent. And when he accustoms himself to rejoice in God through reflecting on his greatness, then on the principle that an arousal of men below brings a corresponding arousal above, perhaps after all these efforts of his, a spirit, ruach, from above will descend upon him, and it will be granted him that the soul level of ruach originating in the soul of some tzaddik will be impregnated in him so that he may serve God with true joy. Let me explain, and I'm sure the text over there will explain what I'm going to share. The first point the rabbi says, if you have a habit, if you develop a habit, it becomes second nature. Becoming second nature meaning it's much easier to follow. So if I take upon myself, for example, I don't want to speak negative about people. The first few times it may be a challenge. But after a while, when someone asks me a question and it's not a complimentary about somebody, they say, "I'm sorry, I don't like to talk about it," even though I have the urge to speak that way. Now I'm not that righteous. But all I'm saying is that if you develop such a habit, it becomes second nature. The second point the rabbi is talking about is called impregnating a new soul. A human being, every one of us, is able to realize, to receive a soul of a tzaddik to enter his body, assisting his soul in serving God. If someone has, let's say, great limitations by the virtue of his soul and where the soul comes from, but he's trying very hard and putting a lot of effort, God will send him a gift, and that gift would be a spark or a part of another soul of a righteous man who had served God smoothly, and that will enable that person to do. I see myself, there are people, I don't want to say, because some of you may know them, that the way, when I knew them before and when I knew them now, not only then I couldn't have imagined how connected to God they are, but even today, when I see them, the way they're connected to God, it's impossible. It's impossible to fathom. And the only reason can be either they worked so hard on themselves that making it a habit, so therefore it comes to them a lot easier, or because they have another soul that entered their body, enabling them to serve God on a whole different level that is impossible to imagine just by looking at them the way they are. Kabbalah speaks of the soul of a tzaddik impregnating another's soul with its faculties so that the latter may serve God as a tzaddik does. This concept is somewhat akin to Gilgul, transmigration, or what do you call it? Reincarnation, where a soul is attached to some object or animal or another human being, except that in the case of Gilgul, reincarnation, the soul is chained to and dominated by the body to which it attaches. Whereas in the case of impregnation, it is not. The soul of the tzaddik serves merely as an additional spiritual charge for the soul of the recipient, and after a while it will depart. In our context, the impregnation of the Benoni's soul with the Ruach originated in the Tzaddik soul enables the Benoni to experience a delight in God that he could not attain on his own. Thus, it is written, "Rejoice, O Tzaddik, rejoice, O Tzaddikim, in God." This alludes also to the idea that when two types of tzaddikim are joined together, the verse addresses tzaddikim in the plural. Tzaddik is a singular, tzaddikim is many. In the plural form, when the Benoni, called the lower level tzaddik, is impregnated with the soul of a tzaddik, a higher level tzaddik They both rejoice in God, for the tzaddik imparts his delight in the godliness of the Benoni. In this way, the oath charging him to be a tzaddik will truly be fulfilled. So again, to summarize what we just started today, God has given an oath to the soul: be a tzaddik, be righteous, and do not be wicked. Seemingly, it is a duplicity, it's superfluous. But the idea is to aim us very, very far where we may not never reach that place. At the same time, stay away from evil, which is something everybody can reach. How do you stay away, says the rabbi? He's talking about two methods. One is concentrating on positive and delighting God by involving our activities to serve God in a positive, pleasurable, pleasant way. Also, another way is by contemplating the results of our behavior and our action, which will keep us away from harm's way, from misbehaving. The rabbi goes on to explain that sometimes God will grant, if we try to be a tzaddik, we are not going to actually be a tzaddik because it's God's choice, not my choice. But let's say I'm putting an effort and trying very hard. God can grant us a gift of a spark from a righteous man to enter our body and help us to enjoy, rejoice, and feel the delight of pleasure of serving God. And in that way, we are rewarded for our effort of trying to be a tzaddik. So again, to summarize, we need to understand that it's not different human beings. It can be within one person. Each one of us has moments of a tzaddik, or activities of a tzaddik, activities of wicked, activities of a Benoni. And the goal is for us to try and take the Rasha behavior, those sins, those activities that were very hard, to move them to a Benoni where we stay away from act, speech, or thought. Next week, the rabbi is going to talk about the fact that we all face challenges. No matter where we are, no matter how talented, no matter what gifts we have, no matter what upbringing we have, we all face challenges. What's the purpose of the challenges? Yes, Herman.
Just to clear up a question I have in my mind. You told us the many degrees of Benonis.
500, right.
You told us there are maybe 30 tzaddik.
There is a complete tzaddik and there is an incomplete tzaddik.
But
The complete tzaddik is only one. The incomplete tzaddik, there are many.
That was the question.
That was the question. Okay.
Because you call a lower level.
Correct.
Yeah.
So there is a complete tzaddik, that's only one. Incomplete tzaddik, there are many, many levels. Yes.
Is there a commentary somewhere that X amount of souls were created? So the finite amount
Of tzaddiks? Yes.
Gets recycled.
No, they don't. If he's a tzaddik, he's not recycled.
I know, so it goes back.
A tzaddik is always brand new soul. So God created a number of them and he spread them like with a salt shaker. Every generation, 36.
Right,
Lamed Vav, right.
thank you.
They say that also crazy idiots, God also wanted to make sure that not too many in each generation. So he put them in a salt shaker, and every generation he pours a little bit. However, he came to one town, I'm not going to say which one, where we was pouring, and the cover. All right, this is in honor of Hanukkah. We will meet again, God willing, next week, Bli Neder, and we'll continue to chapter 15. You are doing great. Thank you, everyone. Good night, guys.